Okay, Mama and Robert paid us a visit in Maine in August of 1953. I think we're in Grand Falls, New Brunswick, Canada in this series of pictures. Okay, this series I just call Assorted. I think they were taken in September of 1953. There was some kind of event at the Officers Club, and I was dressed up in my formal uniform. Okay, here's a shopping trip to Presque Isle, Maine. There was Presque Isle, Caribou, and Limestone right together there. We were very, very close to Canada, just 6 miles from the border. Okay, we're in Baton Rouge here in September of 1953. We had to come home because my father died. He died on September 23rd. He was only 53 years of age. There is Robert with John. Daddy died on September 23rd. Robert died on September 26th in 1966. Okay, there's Dama again, my grandmother, my mother's mother. Her name was Lula Josephine Brown. Her father was a circuit-riding Methodist minister. I understand he rode a horse to make his rounds up around Central. Dama died 3 days after her 92nd birthday in 1966. Okay, this is Johnny's first birthday. I think we're in Lake Charles, and I think that I had already gone back to the Air Force. Catherine chose to stay in Baton Rouge so the baby Kathy could be born here. I'm showing these pictures were taken in December of 1953. I assume Catherine took these with her brownie. I was away at Limestone, of course. I would guess that that's Joey Carney with Johnny. Okay, this is January of 54, and I'm up at Limestone. This is my car. One of my airman friends is trying to get it unstuck from the snow. This is the Air Force television station up there. I was officer in charge of the station for a while. The first Air Force or military-owned television station in the armed forces. I remember he was the base chaplain, but I don't remember his name. And there's Lieutenant Selleck. My assistant on the right in the television station, and Lieutenant Pat Williams, I think, one of the few female officers we had on the base. It's curious that the only other officer named Selleck in the Air Force was stationed at this base with me. She was a nurse, and I've forgotten her name. That's from the roof of the hospital where the television station was located. Must have liked my car. I took a lot of pictures of it. This is my room at the BOQ. Okay, these are some in Lake Charles while I wasn't there. That, of course, is Andre, Catherine's father. Pops. And there's the little mama. That's Joey Carney, I'm sure. As I probably said before, and I will probably say again, I don't guarantee that all of these pictures are in the proper sequence. I did the best I could, but most of them, or many of them, didn't have dates, and they came from different sources. Well, I remember this time in my life. I was in Maine, and Catherine was in Lake Charles, where Kathy was born. I remember I drove down from Limestone all the way to Lake Charles. It took me 18 hours to get from Limestone to Roanoke, Virginia, where I slept about 12 or 15 hours and got in the car again and drove all the way to Baton Rouge, which took me another 18 hours. I slept at Mom's and then went on to Lake Charles to see my new daughter. And there she is. And there's Grandmother Debuse, Mama. One of the several problems I faced in doing this project was finding enough music to go the length of the tapes. There are 8 tapes in all, so 7 2-hour tapes and 1 1-hour cassette. Over 14 hours. The period covered is from 1945 to June of 1990. About June of 1990, I bought a camcorder, and that's how I do my picture taking these days. remember I developed these pictures of Kathy while I was in Japan. Wasn't quite sure who she was, because it was several months later that I developed them. Of course, I knew who she was. Okay, this is the day Kathy was christened in Lake Charles, February of '54. I remember how upset I was with the priest who baptized her. He was a real smart ass. I was afraid that the baptism didn't take, because I don't think he did a very good job. Okay, we're back in Maine now in Limestone, and these are the officers' quarters where we stayed for a very short time. This was officer housing, just been built on the base up there, and I had no idea that we would go up there, then all of a sudden I'd be sent to Japan, and Kathy and Johnny and Catherine would have to go back to Lake Charles. And they're back in Louisiana, summer of '54. That's at my mother's house on Whitehaven Street. Okay, while they were in Lake Charles and Baton Rouge during the summer, I was in Japan, and this is beautiful downtown Misawa, where I was stationed, Misawa Air Force Base. And that really wasn't the J.C. Penney Company. one of the floor shows at the Officers Club. There was not a lot for us to do over there. A lot of spare time, a lot of free time, because we were just sitting there on what they called TDY, or temporary duty, waiting to go into what was then French Indochina, which is Vietnam. We never went. We took our F-86s and went back to the United States. Forgive the extraneous noises. As I said before, I do not have a soundproof studio, and I'm doing all of this myself, playing the records, working the board, and talking, watching the slides, and having a ball. Some of the places I went to in Japan was Misawa. That's where I was stationed. That's where I lived. That's the BOQ. That's the orderly room where I worked when I worked. That's part of the base defense perimeter. I was not a flying officer, so I went into the infantry when we had a base alert and we were afraid the Chinese communists were going to attack, which they never did. There's a Fifth of Canadian Club back there. It cost $1.25 at the Officers Club. I learned to drink a little of that while I was there. I started to say some other places I went while I was in Japan. I went down to Tokyo for a while, and we'll see that later. I also went to Muchi Ichikawa and to Omori. That's where all these pictures were taken, one of those locations. That's a real rice paddy. Another view of Misawa Air Force Base from my room at the BOQ. There were no Japanese cars then as we have them now. All of our vehicles on the base and our taxis on the base were made in the United States. We called them stateside taxis. That's Mama-san's nightclub. The Japanese countryside. That's Tom Mulligan, I do believe. The name just came to me. I'm not really sure that's right. I know him and I know her. I know she was a nurse and they were friends, but I cannot remember the names. You notice that I'm not often in uniform. I was not the world's greatest Air Force officer. I only wore the uniform when I had to. If I had that period of my life to do over again, I would do a better job of being a second lieutenant. But I just could not wait to get out. Those two guys on the left in the last picture were warrant officers, and they kind of adopted the young lieutenant and kept me out of trouble while I was over there. Kind of like those. They're kind of artistic, aren't they? Okay, this is Tokyo now. The Imperial Hotel in Tokyo by Frank Lloyd Wright. Note the American car there in Tokyo. There's Tom again. On a Japanese train going somewhere, probably to Amori. I think this is Amori. As I add the audio, this is November 10th, 1996, a Sunday night in Baton Rouge. One of the numerous floor shows we had at the Officers Club. Looks like we had a floor show almost every night. There just wasn't that much else to do. Okay, that's my group that toured Tokyo one day, and there's a close-up of me and the other officer. Okay, well, I was finally able to leave Japan, and I spent about 3 weeks, I think it was, in Hawaii as a liaison officer at Hickam Air Force Base. Our people were coming back from Japan, and among the places we stopped was Hawaii. We also stopped on Wake Island or Midway coming back, and then at an air base in California, Travis Air Force Base or Moffett Naval Air Station. That was Queen Liliuokalani's palace we just saw, and this is Lieutenant Colonel Bowers, who was the other liaison officer with me. We had so much fun there, we kind of got in trouble with the bosses because we didn't do a very good job of being liaison officers. Okay, back in Louisiana, this has got to be Lake Charles. That, of course, is Andre in the last picture with Johnny. And there's Miss Kitty, the swimming pool. This is Kathy. Ah, cute little baby she was. Andre and Johnny, or John as he likes to be called. Joe Carney getting a little older than that picture. We're in August of '54. The hairless one there is Kathy. Okay, and we're on our way back to Maine in August of '54 for the last 6 months of service. Here we've stopped at a motel somewhere along the way, going back up there. In front of our quarters at officer housing at what then was called Loring Air Force Base. Sometime while I was there, they changed the name from Limestone to Loring. I believe we're coming up on Johnny's second birthday. There it is. Kind of mediocre colors. I think these were taken with negative sides. The pictures do get better as we proceed with this project. And of course, I got better at what I was doing as I went along. There's Johnny in the snow. I don't think Kathy was too fond of the snow. You'll see her fussing later. Okay, this is a party at the Officers Club. You'll notice the lieutenant is not wearing his uniform, or is my commander. What's this guy's name? Major Lorenzo Caliendo. It just came to me. I can't tell you who my fellow officers are. I do know this was taken on the 4th of December, 1954. I have a date on this one. It was the next day, December 5th, 1954. Kathy looking out upon the snow. Okay, this is Christmas up there in the coal country. Christmas of 1954. Kathy's first. Some of our fellow officers and their wives, some of our friends while we were there at Limestone. Okay, this one was taken on the 23rd of January, 1954. There's a Louisiana license on the car. We were allowed to do that because we were in the service living in Maine. We had plates from all over the country up there. Okay, scenes from the orderly room of the operations squadron, where I was the adjutant. That was my clerk typist, a nice guy. Some snow scenes from around the base. Some of these are kind of pretty. Kathy had her first birthday while we were living in Maine on the 10th day of February, 1955. And there she is with her cake. I guess you hear the clock chiming in the background. 9 o'clock on Sunday night. Okay, the 2 years in the Air Force was finally over, and we're on our way home. This is New Haven, Connecticut. We stopped at the home of some friends on the way back to Baton Rouge and Lafayette. On the way home, I think this is in Mississippi. And I know that's Baton Rouge. Diddy getting to see her grandchildren. Okay, back at home in Lafayette. I think this is our house on College Avenue. There's a College Drive in Baton Rouge, and there's a College Avenue, which is now University Avenue, I think, in Lafayette. And sometimes I get mixed up after all these years. I remember our first home back in Lafayette was a duplex right across from SLI. That's where these pictures were taken. I keep trying to recall the name of the lady that owned the house, but it will not come to me. Okay, this is probably the park at St. Martinville. That's Bob Castellan on the left. He worked with me at KLFY. That's one of Bob's children. Okay, I do believe this is a birthday party for John. He would have been 3 years old in 1955. Okay, Christmas time now. Television set there. Just becoming popular, TV was about this time. There's Christmas morning. How many of those have we had? Of course, Robert and my mother came over to see us. Okay, a birthday for Kathy. Her second birthday in February of that year, 1956. A visit to Baton Rouge. There's Robert and the dog Roscoe. Some really bad negatives here, technically poor anyway, but I used them just the same. My brother Robert was quite the athlete. I know it made his mother happy because I never cared to be an athlete, never cared much for sports. A visit to the Lafayette Airport. Could that have been an old Eastern Airlines plane in the background? Could have been. Fly Eastern Airlines? Wow. Okay, I don't have dates on these, but these are some construction scenes from KLFY TV, which went on the air that year in 1956. There's Bob Castellan, one of the staff members there. This is a Miss Louisiana. I think that's Bobby Donna Sacheret, of all things, of all people. Miss Louisiana for that particular year. Gordon Shakespeare, the guy on the right. Some event. A scene at the television station. Bill and I were on the air when this was taken. This is the set of Meet Your Neighbor, program we did every afternoon. I think it was 5:30 to 6. And there are sponsors on the board back there. Kind of crude compared to the way they do things today. It was all black and white. We didn't have videotape then. Everything was slide or film or live. There's one of the old Image Orthicon cameras. Our studio band there. Bill had some system for selecting the names of the people he called. He'd always ask him the same question: what was the name of the last sponsor I talked about? And if you knew the answer, you got the money in the jackpot. It was not big dollars. Maybe 10 or 15, maybe 25, maybe it got up to $50. I don't really remember. Bob Castellan interviewing some athlete out at USL, I'm sure. Baseball player, I think. And there I am with some more beauty queens. My advice to anyone taking pictures now, videotape or whatever, date it. Date it. Put the location on there too, because it really took me a great deal of time to figure out when all these slides were taken and to get them in the right order. I think Leroy Guidry, our station photographer, took most of these pictures of me. Had to be the Shriners Circus. These are scenes of election coverage from the studio of KLFY TV. I don't know who was being elected or anything. That's the house we bought at 100 Deanna Drive in Lafayette. I remember the builder was Aaron Paradin. A birthday party for John, for me, had to be July 27th or thereabouts. July of 56, that's Clem Carney over there. Paul DeCluett on the right, Ruth DeCluett on the left. Paul was best man in the wedding. He was also, as I think I said, one of the owners of the television station. Another beauty queen. That's John Plochet on my left. Okay, some more pictures of those good-looking kids. Johnny and Kathy. Before this first cassette ends, though, we're going to have Colin show his face. Okay, this appears to be a crabbing expedition. I think it's in Lake Charles, but it Could be Cypremore Point or somewhere else. That was Blue Tango, in case you don't remember it, or never even heard it, perhaps. Here's one for sweetness. That was Bob Castellan, that last slide. And a birthday party. At least a birthday cake. And here's Colin Burke Selleck. His first pictures. Colin, of course, was born on the same day as Johnny, October 5th, but several years later. This is 1956. Today, of course, Colin plays the classical guitar. I think he likes Bach, so here's some Bach for you, Colin. here's Colin's baptism at Our Lady of Fatima Church on the Abbeville Highway in Lafayette.